Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully, because this is not a truth that quietly walks into your life. This is the kind of truth that shakes the walls you built around your heart. There are moments when someone walks away from you, creates distance, becomes silent, or acts as if they have completely moved on. Yet deep inside their mind, they are still connected to you. Their body may be somewhere else, their voice may be quiet, their pride may stop them from reaching out. But inside their emotions, something powerful is happening. A battle is taking place. They are struggling with thoughts of you, not because of a simple attraction, not because of a temporary feeling that disappears after a few days. I am talking about something much deeper, something that reaches into the hidden parts of the human heart and refuses to be ignored. This is the kind of connection that stays alive, even when someone tries to convince themselves that it is over. Even when they fill their life with distractions, new experiences, new people, and endless noise, there is still a place inside them where your memory remains. You return in their thoughts during quiet moments. You appear in their mind when they least expect it. You exist in the spaces between their daily activities, in the moments when everything becomes quiet, and they can no longer escape what they feel. And here is the part most people fail to understand. The human mind is not controlled only by what we say out loud. There is a deeper emotional world inside every person. The part that creates explanations, the part that hides pain, the part that says, "I am okay," while another voice inside quietly says, "Something is missing. Stay with me." Because this is where the real truth begins. The mind can create many stories to protect a person from uncomfortable emotions. It can say, "I do not care anymore." It can say, "It meant nothing." It can say, "I have forgotten them." But deep feelings do not disappear simply because someone chooses different words. The heart remembers what felt meaningful. The mind stores moments that created a strong emotional impact. It remembers conversations, small details, unexpected kindness, and the feeling of being understood. When someone has experienced a rare connection, that person does not always become just another memory. Sometimes they become a powerful emotional reminder that continues to return. That is why someone may suddenly think about you while doing something completely normal. That is why a song, a place, a small detail, or a familiar feeling can bring you back into their mind instantly. That is why their mood can change when your memory appears without warning. They may not understand why it happens. They may even try to fight it, but emotions do not always follow simple rules. Sometimes, the strongest impact comes from the person who made them feel something they were not expecting. And here is something you need to understand. When someone cannot stop thinking about you, it is not always because you were constantly present. Sometimes, it is because your presence was rare, meaningful, and unforgettable. Sometimes a short moment of genuine connection can leave a deeper mark than years of ordinary experiences. A few honest conversations, a few moments of feeling seen, a few memories that felt different from everything else. These things can create an emotional imprint that time struggles to erase. There are people who leave your life but somehow remain in your thoughts. There are people who disappear from your daily routine but continue to exist in your emotional world. This happens because some connections touch something deeper than simple attention or temporary excitement. They reach a place where feelings, memories, and emotions become connected together. A person can try to move forward, but certain moments continue to pull them back into reflection. They may remember your smile. They may remember the way you made them feel calm. They may remember how they could be themselves around you. And sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that a person can miss you while still staying silent. They can care while pretending they do not. They can feel the weight of your absence while trying to look completely unaffected. The outside world may see nothing, but inside, a different story may be unfolding. So remember this, not every person who walks away has truly let go. Not every silence means indifference. Sometimes silence is where emotions become the loudest. Sometimes distance reveals what closeness was hiding. And sometimes the person trying hardest to forget you is the person whose mind keeps returning to you again and again. If you have ever wondered why someone suddenly remembers you, why they feel your absence, or why a connection refuses to disappear, understand this. Some bonds are not carried only by words. Some are carried by the deep emotional experiences that leave a permanent mark inside the human heart. You may have looked at them in a way that nobody else ever did. You may have noticed the parts of them they usually hide from the world. You may have made them feel understood, accepted, and truly seen. You may have reflected back a side of themselves that they had forgotten was still there. And when someone sees a version of themselves through another person's eyes, something changes inside them. They cannot completely return to the person they were before that moment. That is where the inner conflict begins. That is where the battle starts between what they want to admit and what they try to deny, between the feelings they carry and the words they refuse to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes people do not break down because someone is gone. Sometimes they struggle because someone made them recognize a part of themselves they had ignored for too long. They discovered something through you. Maybe it was comfort. Maybe it was excitement. Maybe it was emotional safety. Maybe it was the rare feeling of being accepted without having to perform, understood without having to explain, appreciated without having to prove anything. And once someone experiences that kind of connection, ordinary experiences can start to feel different. They begin comparing everything else to what they felt with you. This is where the restlessness begins. This is where quiet nights become filled with questions. This is where they replay old conversations, searching for hidden meanings. They remember the smallest details. They wonder why you said certain things, why you looked at them that way, why you became distant, why you walked away, why things changed, why they did not say more, why they did not try harder. Their mind becomes a place full of questions, and you become the memory they keep returning to. Stay with me, because this next part reveals why some people cannot simply forget. The feeling you left behind is not something they can easily organize and put away. It does not fit into a simple category called the past. It continues to exist in their thoughts. It moves through their emotions. It returns during unexpected moments. And this is something many people misunderstand. The harder someone tries to push away a powerful thought, the stronger that thought can become. The more they tell themselves, I should stop thinking about this person, the more their mind brings that person back. The more they try to cover the memory with distractions, the clearer the memory can become. This is one of the strange patterns of human emotions. What we try hardest to ignore often becomes stronger in silence. What we refuse to face does not always disappear. Sometimes it hides beneath the surface and continues growing. A person may say, I am completely over it, but their actions may tell a different story. Pay attention to what people do, not only what they say. Words can sometimes be a shield. Words can be used to protect pride, avoid vulnerability, or hide confusion. But actions often reveal what someone truly feels. They look for updates. They quietly observe. They remember things you thought they forgot. They become different when your name comes up. They overanalyze moments that seemed ordinary. They hold on to details because, inside their emotional world, those details became meaningful. You may have become more than just a person from their past. You may have become a feeling they cannot easily replace. But there is another deeper side to this experience. Sometimes a person is not only responding to you, they are responding to what your presence awakened inside them. They may not even fully understand what is happening. They may not know why your connection affected them so deeply. You may have awakened their desire for something real. You may have reminded them of a part of themselves they had hidden away. You may have touched their need for closeness, understanding, acceptance, and emotional connection. Sometimes people attach powerful meanings to those who make them feel something they have been missing. They begin seeing not only who you are, but also what you represent in their life. You become connected to hope. You become connected to possibility. You become connected to a version of themselves they want to discover. This is why someone can look at you and feel both familiar and mysterious at the same time. They see you, but they also see the emotions you brought out of them. They see the person in front of them, but they also see the future they imagined, the healing they hoped for, and the parts of themselves they wanted to reconnect with. Sometimes you are not just remembered because of what you did. You are remembered because of how someone felt when they were around you. And that feeling can become one of the strongest memories the human heart holds. You become the representation of something they never completely experienced or fully understood. And representations are powerful. They do not disappear quickly. They return in quiet moments. They appear in dreams. They create questions. They leave behind emotions that are difficult to explain. They influence the way a person remembers, feels, and sees the future. That is why moving on is not always simple. They are not only dealing with the memory of a person, they are dealing with an image, a feeling, and a meaning that has settled deep inside their emotional world. Now listen carefully, because this is where the truth becomes both difficult and beautiful at the same time. The person who cannot stop thinking about you may not even realize how deeply they are affected. During the day, they may convince themselves that everything is normal. At night, when distractions disappear, those hidden feelings become louder. They may act like they do not care while secretly wondering about you. They may look calm on the outside while feeling completely unsettled within. They may appear in control while silently struggling with emotions they do not know how to handle. The part of them that wants to appear strong fights against the part that feels vulnerable. So they create a mask. They say, "I am okay." They keep their expression steady. They control their words. They act like nothing has changed. But emotions have their own movement. Deep inside there can still be a storm they are trying to hide. They remember the little things. They remember your voice. They remember your presence. They remember how the atmosphere felt different when you were around. They remember how comfortable silence became. They remember the version of themselves they experienced with you. And sometimes that memory becomes painful because they realize something important was lost. Something meaningful was ignored. Or something they wanted but never had the courage to reach for. Stay with me, because this next truth explains why some connections are so difficult to forget. Many people believe strong attachment is only about wanting to have someone. But sometimes it is not about holding on to a person. Sometimes it is about trying to understand something that feels unfinished. A person who feels whole within themselves does not need another person to complete them. But when someone discovers a feeling, a connection, or a part of themselves through another person, they may begin returning to that memory again and again. They may not admit it openly, but their thoughts continue moving in your direction because something unresolved is connected to the way they experienced you. They may say they want closure, but what they often truly want is freedom from the emotional weight they are carrying. They may say they want peace, but deep inside they want the inner struggle to finally become quiet. And inner struggles do not disappear by pretending they are not there. They become lighter only when someone is willing to face what they truly feel. That is why they continue thinking about you. You have become the place where their unanswered questions gather. You have become the memory they cannot easily remove. You have become an emotion they cannot fully explain with words. And here is something even deeper. Sometimes a person struggles to forget you because you represented a turning point in their life. You were not just another chapter. You were a moment of change. Before meeting you, they may have seen life one way. After experiencing you, something inside them shifted. Even if they deny it, even if they pretend everything stayed the same, something was awakened, something moved. Maybe you entered their life during a difficult period when they felt lost, uncertain, or emotionally tired, and your presence became a light they did not expect to find. Or maybe you appeared when everything seemed stable, but your honesty and depth revealed that some parts of their life were not as fulfilling as they believed. Either way, you created movement inside them. You disturbed the stillness. And once something inside a person has been awakened, it does not instantly return to the way it was before. The emotions continue moving, the memories continue speaking, the heart continues recognizing what mattered. Do not be surprised if they look for the same feeling in other people and cannot find it. Do not be surprised if comparisons begin happening quietly. Do not be surprised if they say they have moved on but still struggle to create the same emotional connection somewhere else. Because the mind can accept replacements, but deep emotions recognize what feels unique. A person can meet many people, but not every connection leaves the same mark. Not every conversation creates the same feeling. Not every presence changes the way someone sees themselves. Some people simply pass through your life. Others leave behind a reminder of something that felt rare. And when someone experiences that kind of impact, forgetting becomes much harder than they expected. The mind says, this is close enough. But something deeper inside says, no, this is not the same. The mind can be distracted. It can accept something temporary. It can convince itself that everything is fine. But deep emotions are not so easy to replace. Once someone has experienced a connection with real depth, ordinary interactions can begin to feel different. Empty conversations feel colder. Fake affection feels easier to recognize. Surface-level connections feel less satisfying. Simple attention no longer feels enough. This is the strange power of a meaningful impact. You awaken a level of awareness in someone that they did not know existed. You create a desire for something deeper. You create memories that do not disappear just because time passes. And maybe, just maybe, this is why they cannot stop thinking about you. Not because you begged for their attention, not because you chased them endlessly, not because you changed yourself to become impossible to ignore, but because you were genuine. Because you brought honesty into a world where many people hide behind masks. Because you offered a presence that could not be copied. Because something about you reached a place inside them that had been forgotten or neglected for a long time. A true connection carries weight. It attracts. It changes people. It creates movement. It leaves an impression that ordinary experiences cannot easily remove. Even when the relationship ends, the emotional impact can remain. It stays like an unfinished thought, like a story that stopped before the final page. And unfinished stories often stay in the mind longer than completed ones. Stay with me, because the next part reveals why some people struggle the most after losing something meaningful. Ladies and gentlemen, the mind often becomes restless when it is forced to face a reality that pride does not want to accept. And the reality in these situations is often simple but painful. They cared more than they showed. They felt more than they admitted. They lost something more valuable than they were prepared to understand. Something about you changed them. And because change can feel uncomfortable, they tried to control the emotions instead of facing them. But emotions that are ignored do not simply disappear. They return in different forms. They return as longing. They return as regret. They return as imagination. They return through memories, dreams, and sudden waves of emotion. They might be surrounded by people and still find their thoughts returning to you. They might laugh with someone else and still feel the emptiness created by your absence. They might create a new story about their life, but somewhere inside, their emotions still remember the old one. The body remembers experiences. The heart remembers feelings. The hidden parts of the mind remember what created a powerful impact. This is why people sometimes behave in confusing ways after a deep connection ends. They send unclear messages. They move closer and then pull away. They say one thing but do another. They quietly look for signs. They want to know if they still matter to you. They want to know if the connection still exists. Because somewhere inside, they already feel that something about you still affects them. And the human mind struggles when it feels influenced by something it cannot fully control. That is when pride appears. Pride says, do not let them know how much they matter. Pride says, stay strong, act unaffected. Pride says, make them question you. But the deeper emotional self tells another story. It says, this person left a mark. That mark can have many names. It can be attachment. It can be longing. It can be emotional memory. It can be a feeling of unfinished business. Whatever name someone gives it, the result remains the same. The person is still processing what happened. And maybe you have wondered if your impact was real. Maybe you questioned whether you truly mattered, or whether the connection meant something only to you. Let me tell you something important. When someone cannot easily ignore you, cannot fully replace the feeling they experienced, and cannot understand why your memory keeps returning, it often means the connection reached a deeper emotional place. Some people enter our lives like a passing breeze. They appear and disappear without changing anything. But some people arrive like a powerful storm. They change the atmosphere. They disturb old beliefs. They create questions that remain long after the moment has passed. They leave someone lying awake at night wondering, why am I still thinking about this person? Why does this memory continue to return? Why does everything seem to remind me of them? Why is letting go so difficult? These are not the questions of someone who feels nothing. These are the questions of someone who experienced something that reached beyond ordinary interaction. When a person cannot stop thinking about you, there may be hidden emotions speaking through their reactions, their curiosity, their dreams, their sudden memories, their desire to know what you are doing, whether you have moved forward, whether you still remember them. The conscious mind may call these thoughts random, but deeper emotions often reveal that they are connected to something unresolved. Sometimes silence is not emptiness. Sometimes silence is where feelings exist when words are not enough. So when someone becomes distant, emotional, unpredictable, curious, or unsettled, do not immediately assume it means they do not care. Human beings are complicated. The heart does not always follow the rules created by logic. A person may not have the courage to speak your name, but still carry your memory. They may not admit they miss you, but still feel your absence. They may not understand why you affected them, but the feeling remains. That is how emotions work. They do not ask for permission before they leave an impact. But there is an important lesson here. Someone struggling to forget you does not always mean you are meant to return to them. Sometimes it means they need to reconnect with themselves. Sometimes your purpose in someone's life was not to stay forever, but to awaken something that had been sleeping inside them. Sometimes pain is not only suffering. Sometimes pain reveals what needs healing. Sometimes emotional confusion is the beginning of personal growth. A powerful connection does not only make people miss another person, it forces them to look inward. It reveals fears. It exposes insecurities. It shows where someone depends too much on another person for their sense of worth. It teaches the difference between love and attachment, between genuine connection and emotional dependence. A person who cannot stop thinking about you may actually be standing at the beginning of a personal transformation. And for the person being remembered, there is also a responsibility. Do not allow someone's attachment to make you arrogant. There is a difference between being valued and being placed on an unrealistic pedestal. There is a difference between being remembered and being imagined as something perfect. There is a difference between true connection and someone projecting their hopes onto you. Sometimes a person is responding not only to who you are, but also to what they believe you represent. This is why staying grounded matters. If your presence affected someone deeply, the answer is not pride. The answer is understanding. A mature heart does not celebrate another person's confusion. It recognizes the emotions beneath it. It understands that people sometimes struggle when their feelings become stronger than their ability to explain them. When the heart experiences something powerful, the mind often tries to catch up, and that internal struggle can feel like being pulled towards something invisible. It can feel confusing. It can feel overwhelming. But sometimes that invisible pull is simply the reminder that something meaningful happened. It feels like a memory that is still alive. It feels like your name quietly written inside the deepest corners of their thoughts. It feels like waking up with a strange heaviness that has no clear explanation. It feels like trying to move forward while something invisible still connects them to you. That connection may become weaker. It may stretch across distance. It may feel damaged by time and silence. But when a bond reaches a powerful emotional depth, it does not always disappear simply because someone decides to be practical or logical. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest misunderstandings people have is believing that the conscious mind controls everything. It does not. The conscious mind often explains what has already happened beneath the surface. It creates reasons. It creates stories. It tries to make sense of emotions that started much deeper. That is why someone can say they are completely finished, and then suddenly find themselves thinking about you again. That is why someone can claim they feel nothing, and then become deeply curious about your life. That is why someone can say they are free, while still feeling connected internally. The hidden emotional world is where many of these battles happen, and when someone has a strong emotional place for you there, removing you is not always simple. This is why some people do not leave your life in a straight and final way. They remain like a quiet echo. They stay like an unanswered question. They return like a dream that feels more real than reality itself. They become a repeated thought appearing in the background of the mind. Stay with me, because this explains why some people continue returning to a memory even when they believe they have moved on. Maybe this is what is happening inside them right now. Maybe they are not simply remembering you occasionally. Maybe your memory interrupts them. Maybe thoughts of you appear when they are trying to focus on something else. They may be working, talking, laughing, or enjoying a normal moment, and suddenly your face appears in their mind. A song plays, and they remember you. They visit a familiar place, and emotions return. They notice a small detail, hear a certain phrase, or experience a familiar feeling, and suddenly the past feels present again. This is how deep emotional memories often work. They do not always arrive loudly. Sometimes they enter quietly, but they return so often that a person can no longer pretend they are meaningless. The more someone tries to force a thought away, the more powerful that thought can become. The more they say, "I should not think about this," the more their mind brings it forward. So yes, they may feel overwhelmed by thoughts of you, but not because you are only an imagination. It is because you became connected to a real emotional experience inside them. You were noticed. You were felt. You created an impression that ordinary memories cannot easily replace.